the book has been published thematically. The layout is thematic, so it's called Struggle, Exile, and Love. I didn't struggle much, I have to say again. I was not in exile. I was born in exile. Love has been a very hard to find. What do we call it? A little gem that is still yet to be found, of course. But that doesn't stop one from yearning for it. So a lot of the love poetry that you'll see, hopefully in the book, is not about a particular person or a particular. It's more like a composite of what one would love to love.
Well, when I first saw the book, it really inspired me, in the sense that we've been trying for a long time to have his poems published. The unfortunate part has been that most of his poems have been published overseas, but nobody wanted to do it here, or they didn't think there's a need for it to be published here,
I, for one, know how much of effort and how many long nights of writing Afzal has been through, and what a journey it was to get to this point.
I'm extremely happy, and I must first of all thank the Ahmed Katrada Foundation for taking the initiative in having it published. And I think that it's a very good publication.
And as you can see, photographs thematically on different, a lot of tributes to fallen comrades and to fallen leaders and heroes like Che Guevara, Solomon Mashlangu, a very rare photograph of Madiba's mom, which is very hard to come by during the time of apartheid. I think this was during the treason trial. We really don't have the idea who took this photograph. It could have been Ellie Weinberg, but there's my mother and Comrade Madiba's mother, rare photographs. Comrade Uncle Kathy, our beloved Uncle Kathy, Comrade Chris Hani, brutally assassinated 1 year before the advent of democracy. Spent his whole life fighting in the trenches, MK, to be mowed down by a fascist Polish immigrant who came and robbed this country of a true hero, a true South African. We would be in a very different place, I believe, today, if people like Comrade Chris Hani, Comrade Oliver Tambo, and others were alive, given what we see today. And that is the book. It touches on many subjects: xenophobia, the immigrant. Even though I don't regard myself as an exile, I was born there, but moving around from country to country, having grown up in Egypt, India, Finland, and more, and a lovely collage of photographs, more poetry, some prose, mostly against a nice shot of Mosey here, who turns 86 on the 12th of June this year, 2 days after the recording of this.
But on the whole, it's a good book, and it's very well laid out. It's a professional job. There's no question about it.
And I'm really, really, really proud of Afzal, because he spent many, many evenings in his room, in his dusty room, if I can say that, writing his scribbles, as he would call it, and often running through the corridor, knocking on my door and asking me to please read through it and edit it, and to make sure that it is absolutely perfect before he sends it out.
When I was still in exile, I used to hear that he writes poems from his friends, and I said, what the hell? He's never been did a course in poetry, but what's happening? And only when I came back, when I saw that the work is it's been good work. I think on the whole, yeah, it brings back memories. It takes us back to the 60s and the 50s, you know, of how we used to work and to put up posters, publicized for Congress meeting for the movement. So there has been a lot of things. It brings back memories about South Africa itself, the children, people that are left behind. Some of them were not born. Others who were born are today grandfathers and grandmothers. So you can. It was quite, 28, 29 years in exile is no easy. It's no walk in the garden. We've had very, very tough times together with Comrade Oliver Tambo, because I worked very closely with him when I used to edit our weekly journal, ANC, known as Spotlight on South Africa. So I got Comrade Oliver to do the editorials. And I'll tell you that one thing about that paper of ours, Spotlight on South Africa, it was on the dot. We used to, at times, Comrade Oliver and I, we used to leave the office at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, just to get him. He has to do it. It has to be typed. It has to be cyclostyled, and it was hard work. I started it was started by Bandi when he was there for a week or two. Bandi Desai, before he left.
Because it takes me back to the days of I was never in exile. I was born in exile. So my Mosi and Jubi, Mosi Papa and Jubi Mami, they were in exile. They separated. It's a very harsh, painful chapter of our lives. More so my brother and my sister and my Papa and Mami, the separation of children from parents, which so many other South Africans felt. But to be separated, it's beyond words. I can never understand or feel how they felt the pain.
I grew up in a very political home, as you well know. And throughout my years, I spent most of my time staying with my grandfather and my grandmother, and Afzal as well. Those years were very important to me because I learned a lot about the struggle that they went through to get South Africa to where it is today. I'm very, very passionate about who we are as people and what the struggle means to everyone in this country, and how we can instill what my grandfather and my grandmother went through in our everyday lives, making a difference to the people of South Africa. I try very hard as well to be like my grandfather and to inhabit the values and the ethics and the strength that he had during the time of the struggle. I am so proud of him because I know the struggle that he's been through. I know the struggle that my grandfather and my grandmother have been through. I'm so grateful and so honored that I got to live with him for the most important years of my life.
And a very amazing story of Comrade Abdoulaye Charlie Jassat and Papa Mosi. They were both born on the same day, the 12th of June. They both born in the same month, year 1934. They were arrested a few times together. They were detained a few times together. They escaped together. They left South Africa, of course, they were smuggled out of South Africa within a few days of each other. They spent 27, 28 years in exile, not together but separate sides of the ocean. Uncle Charlie in London, Papa many places here and there, wherever the ANC deployed him. They came back to South Africa almost together, and we live just a few kilometers between us. That is, I mean, an amazing coincidence. It's an amazing coincidence.
I've been a bit hardened over the years, 28, 29 years in exile, seeing people going, coming, others, others dying in front of you, So it's not really, for me, it's not a tearjerker, but it is a deep appreciation for the work that is done.
It encapsulates, I think, both the theme of the themes of love, of course, and when it comes to exile, it comes to the immigrant experience, as we see today in South Africa, the influx of economic refugees from our neighboring countries, the horrible, detestable xenophobia that we have seen, which is beyond words. And of course, I don't want to really go on about it, as they say, but beyond words. And the fact that we, as a nation, as a country, as a government, did not fail. We actually failed to be strong enough against those very people who gave us succor, who gave us solace, who gave us safe havens when we needed it, and they could not be protected on the streets of Johannesburg, etc., by xenophobic mobs who killed them purely for being foreign. So this book, this poem is called Searching. It encapsulates love. It encapsulates, like I said, I normally call it a scribble, but I'll call it a poem for the fact that it's an online launch and very, very humbling. Searching in the debris of the past, scraps of casually discarded emotion. Searching in hastily trashed yesterdays, an inkling of moments flung away. Searching in heaps of rubbished words, that tiresome sigh of defeated thought. Searching in the layers of molted skin, the wilting self that once was true. Searching in the reflections between the ripples for the whispered pangs of roaring desire. Searching in the blank eyes streaming endlessly, an echo of the faintest sigh of new life. Searching. So the poems that I write were mostly and are mostly they've been inspired by the great revolutionary poets throughout the ages, and through all the poems of Langston Hughes, in the States, the anti-slavery, the what they call the spirituals, Old Man River, etc., the unionist poets and singer Joe Hill, South Africa. In Africa alone, the poetry of the great freedom fighters and poets, Agostinho Neto, Amilcar Cabral. I mean, these are giants in the political and in the struggle for freedom. But along with that, their poetry is just so moving. And so Wole Soyinka, there are far too many to be mentioned, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention these very Agostinho, Antonio Neto. Then, of course, further afield, Pablo Neruda, Pablo Neruda. Even further, when it comes to the fight against imperialism, great poets like Jose Marti. Very popular poem of his that has been put to song is Guantanamera. People know that, but he was a great Cuban poet, and he was killed in an uprising against the fascist regimes at the time. This is before Fidel and them. Then in India, then in Egypt, then in Turkey, the poetry of Nazim Hikmat. All these poets inspired me to scribble a little bit here and there. And I, I don't say this as being falsely modest at all. I know that disclaimer in itself says something, but it is not being falsely modest. But my poetry, I don't even regard it truly as of the standard that I would like my writing to be. Uh, Especially when it's standing on the shoulders of giants, or just merely trying to clamber up the shoulders of giants and take some inspiration from them. What's really humbling is that my maternal grandfather, Maulvi Saluji, who was very active. He was banned during the apartheid years, spent time in detention, prominent member of the Transvaal Indian Congress, and friend and comrade of Dr. Yusuf Dadu, Nana Sita, Monty Naika, and the whole across the religious and ethnic and caste divides that apartheid tried to foment even within the communities, not just racially, but even breaking it down to the tribalistic, later on the Bantustans, etc. And my maternal grandfather was a lover of Urdu and Farsi poetry, and he instilled in my mother that love. She got it. And since I was young, my mother used to always talk about the great Urdu poets, the great Farsi poets, Umar Khayyam, Mirza Ghalib, the protest poems, the revolutionary poets of India during the freedom struggle, Ram Prasad Bismil, the uh, the the most resounding calls for freedom, while Gandhiji was embarked on the satyagraha and the peace, the non-violent struggle against British Raj. The poetry that inspired the the villages of India, people could quote. It was in such simple terms and such beautiful verses of revolutionary action, and it stirred people. So I have my mother to thank. She's no longer with us. She would be very proud, I'm sure. I say that humbly, but she's looking down, and it's an emotional moment because I got my love for the protest, Urdu and Farsi and Hindi, and even a bit of Sanskrit, even though, of course, Sanskrit it's like Latin, it's very difficult, but that was for mommy. When it comes to the English, it's all my father, Mosey, from a very young age again, since I was knee high, talking about the great poets, the struggle poets, comrade and today National Poet Laureate Professor Mongani Wali Serote, former late South African National Poet Laureate Comrade Brawili Khusitsile, uh, the singer-songwriters Vuisile Mini, who was executed by the apartheid regime, and who, this is not a legend, it's not apocryphal, this is a true story that many people have, that witnessed, who are still alive today, that Comrade Mini went to the gallows singing his songs of freedom. And for a younger person, I can't wrap my mind around that. What kind of, what depth of ideals and principles and values, that one could walk to one's death, to one's execution, singing. It's beyond words, beyond words. There no poem, no poetry, nothing can ever even come close to to that kind of commitment and all. So the poems that I write were mostly and are mostly they've been inspired by the great revolutionary poets throughout the ages.
I'm looking forward to, if there's a possibility that this book can be sent to the schools, the schools, as many schools as possible, because it deals with interracial harmony, it deals with sectarianism, and it's a book that will that should open the minds of scholars, students and others. Ismail Baivani, I must thank you. And of course, the poet himself and his niece, my granddaughter, Faiza. She's been doing a lot of work. So I don't know if she's told him where he must put the commas.
I wish Afzal all the best with his book. He has put his life into it. Those of you who know him knows that he struggles with his eyes a lot. And this book means so much to him because he spent many hours, many nights, many days scribbling on his phone and thinking of different ways to impact people's lives with his words. I would also like to extend a huge thank you to the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation for making this possible and for all the time and effort that they put into publishing this book. It is such a beautiful book. I love it. I keep it on the bedside of my table and I am so proud of it. I'm so proud of it again because I know exactly how much effort was put into this book. So thank you very much and all the best.
The most humbling is when respected comrade Ismail Vadi took it without fail at the launch of another comrade, a great South African, beyond words, Comrade Lalu Isuchiba, the launch of his book, and Comrade Ismail Ji approached and asked me whether, and of course that made my decade. And from that time onwards, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, the Vadi family, they went with it, and the result is in my hands. It's an amazing publication, really. It's a coffee table style book, and what's lovely about it is that it's simple. It's been broken up thematically thanks to the extremely professional editorial work of an old English teacher, Mr. Ismail Vadi.
As a father, I'm very proud that his work is being published.
I cannot put it into words actually, because it's it's very personal that someone would take up what I really believe to be just words that I've written, and to publish it and to have an online launch like this is truly humbling.